But you got to understand ag and farming so much to really understand how to add value, because farmers have been farming for a long time, man. 1, 2, 3.
Coming up on The Modern Acre, we're catching up with Guillermo Valenzuela of WiseConn, talking all things irrigation automation.
The Modern Acre is the podcast for builders in ag that think differently. If you'd like to dig deeper with The Modern Acre, check out our membership community where we do exclusive audio every week, The Modern Acre Co-op.
The Modern Acre is presented by Corteva Agriscience. Corteva Agriscience combines industry-leading innovations, high-touch customer engagement, and operational execution to profitably deliver solutions for the world's most pressing agricultural needs. Corteva generates advantage market preference through its unique distribution strategy, together with its balanced and globally diverse mix of seed, crop protection, and digital products and services. With some of the most recognized brands in agriculture and a technology pipeline well-positioned to drive growth, the company is committed to maximizing productivity for farmers while working with stakeholders throughout the food system as it fulfills its promise to enrich the lives of those who produce and those who consume, ensuring progress for generations to come. Ty, we are into the second week of October, and it's a challenging time of year for you. It's the time of year when the weather starts to cool off, people are going to pumpkin patches, people are getting pumpkin spice lattes, but more importantly, people are decorating their yards with Halloween decorations. Always seems to be a triggering event for you. How are you doing so far this season, Ty?
Well, first, Tim, I appreciate you checking in on me. This time of year is always pretty tough. We've been going on, family walks, and my daughters just can't wait for the Halloween decorations to arrive. The spiders, the ghosts, the jack-o'-lanterns, the cats. It is all nonsensical, and it is disappointing, the amount of Halloween decorations in our neighborhood. I'm just not about it. If you're a longtime listener, you know this is one of my biggest issues. It's a hill I'll die on. I'm just not into the Halloween decorations, okay? They're creepy. They never look good. I've seen it done tastefully a few times. Shout out Ariel Patton. There's just, it's typically not well done. And I don't need to see tarantulas, on all over people's yards, tombstones. It's just, it's not for me. I don't love it. My daughters do. I just like a tasteful pumpkin on the porch. Okay. That's what I'm about, Tim.
Porch pumpkins. Yeah, it is like getting out of control. There's like a makeshift cemetery around the corner from my house, just all these tombstones and spider webs. And yeah, it's same thing. Mason loves it. So anytime we go on a walk, all she wants to do is look at Halloween. And so we look at all these crazy decorations. Yesterday, we did a little family trip to Lowe's, and they have all the Halloween decorations there. And so she was like going crazy. I'm like, who spends $500 on this like robotic Halloween decoration? Just like insane stuff going on, Ty.
Well, we learned, Tim, that people are spending $1,000 to have their porch decorated with just pumpkins. So I guess there's just a massive, massive market here. Maybe I should lean in and start a Halloween decor business.
Yeah, it seems like you have a lot of free time, so you should definitely do that. Are there any domains available?
Seriously, we got to check the domains. Be right back. All right, guys. Well, we are excited to have Guillermo back on. Guillermo knows agriculture inside and out. It's always great hearing from a company that's serving agriculture. In WiseConn's case, they're providing remote automation for irrigation, and they do things obviously heavy in California, but all over. And they do center pivot irrigation. They're kind of in everything, and they've really innovated a lot on the hardware side. And what I really liked about the conversation is his perspective on kind of meeting customers and growers where they're at, but also partnering with other technology companies, right? Not doing everything for everyone, but doing what they do best, having that hyper focus and having an ability to partner with other companies in the industry. So a ton in here from Guillermo you guys are going to love. Let's jump in with what's top of mind.
Basically, today we've been, working out on the situation with the growers and with the almond industry specifically in the last couple of years in California. That has been a challenge for us since we had developed a lot of the marketing in California around that crop, and so it's made us innovate and go into other crops and learn about other irrigation practices in different like row crops, veggies, and trying to tomatoes, and trying to get into like crops that we were not touching before. Now things have seemed to be getting a little bit better. It's been a couple of hard years for farmers, and across the board, I would say, in walnuts as well. Pistachios took kind of like a hit a break a little bit sooner, so they didn't get into like a big crisis. But many crops have been in a very difficult situation for the last couple of years. So that's been how we, what's been top of mind and keeping me awake and trying to understand also how we can help growers, help them, make money growing or grow more with the same resources. So being the price low, you need to get your production levels high in order to make money. Otherwise, the business gets pretty tough.
No, super interesting times right now in agriculture. When we chatted a couple of years ago, it was kind of the boom of the market. Things have definitely been a little bit more depressed, a lot of margin compression happening. And you feel that as a hardware manufacturer, I'm sure, where growers are making less money, they're probably less interested in making these investments. To your point, like some of these investments do boost yields and increases. There is ROI to be had in these times of really challenging margin compression happening. Maybe just talk to us about kind of product development over the past couple of years, kind of where is the product currently? I know you're in a lot of permanent crops, exploring annual crops. Maybe just talk to us about the last couple of years.
So yeah, the last couple of years have been fun in terms of the product development because we just launched the new family of products for WiseConn, which is the V1, and it's a valve controller that actually we would work it out in order to drop cost in a very significant way, like 40%. So that allows us to get to market at a much more, affordable solution at the moment of the capital investment, especially. And that has allowed us to also penetrate into crops that we were not working with before. So we've been doing a lot in the coast. We've been working a lot with strawberries, and even some row crops, in the Pacific Northwest, veggies, where WiseConn was not necessarily the best suited solution because it was more of a permanent installation with a big pole. And so now this product is more mobile. It doesn't have a solar panel. The antenna is inside, so you can actually move it around. It works on LoRa, that has a better capability of being in let's say in a low spot or with less line of sight for the radio communications that have always been a challenge in this industry. So we're excited of where we can get. You can run on this thing for a battery for 18 months, so on one charge. So that's a game changer in terms of those crops where you need to go out and prepare the soil and remove everything and then put everything back a year later, which is a completely different situation than an almond or a citrus or a nut or a fruit, stone fruit. So we've also been learning around that and how it needs to be easy to install, needs to be easy to set up, configure it quickly, learn how to use it quickly, which actually we've been having, some calls there, Tim, and kind of like how to learn how to use the system and get the most out of it. At the end of the day, it's a capital investment. I like to say it's the remote control of the TV. And that remote control, you're not used to standing up to go change the channel or lower the volume. You're doing it from the remote control, but it's only a very small portion of the investment on the farm or on the TV in this case. But if you didn't have it, you probably wouldn't watch TV. So, it's and then the remote control gets complex. That's what I've been trying to tell also growers. Every grower has a different need. So the complication is that you actually need to come out with a product that does everything, because some guys have water on demand, some guys have wells, some guys have reservoirs, some guys are moving water around, some guys don't, only can irrigate when you get a turn, when you have your turn. So, and then you got different irrigation systems, different ages. There's irrigation systems that have been out there for 30, 40 years, and the distribution uniformity on those irrigation systems is very bad. So there's a lot of dollars going out on how you're distributing the water within the block with an irrigation system you installed in the late 90s. So then it's time to invest on retrofitting, improving the irrigation system. And so the automation system at the end of the day becomes kind of like this, this remote control where you are looking at your filter, you're looking at your water source, you're looking at your reservoir, at your valve, at your fertilizer injection system, all these different moving parts that an irrigation system has that you need to control. And that's why the remote control has so many buttons on it. If it only had volume, then it would be only the remote control for volume, and you would need another remote control for the channels, and that wouldn't really make sense. So the complexity on what we've been building on and trying to get to the market, solving the first problem, the first issue. What's your first issue? Oh, I'm running on peaks and power is very high, the cost. Or in Napa, you talk to growers and they're like, there's no labor. So, I mean, it's hard to find people to go around and open and close valves. So in Napa, valves are necessary. But when you look at the broad scope of the whole industry and all the the different crops and the different geographies and different needs, different weathers, everybody has a different need. So every farm is a little bit different and has a different point to start implementing technology. Now, when you do, you start saving power, you start saving labor, and if you're irrigating well and you get good agronomy behind the data, now you're also producing more. So now you're making more money, right? And you're getting 4,000 pounds of almonds per acre. So you're making money, even if it's at $1.5 a pound. You're making a little bit of money, To be precise with the fertilizer has also been a very interesting thing we've seen, because the fertilizers, depending on how you inject them, and I just was in a podcast with the Yara people, with Scott War. We had a conversation, and Craig Hornung from AC Foods, and we were talking about fertilizer injection, how if you inject the fertilizer at the, it's common practice that an irrigator injects all the fertilizer in the evening before going home and then leaves the water on and comes back up 6 a.m., 5:30 a.m. The water's been running for 10 hours. All that fertilizer was washed away. And so now the fertilizers are not helping, or they're not as effective as they should be. It's because you injected it in the wrong time. You have to inject it in a way where you know that after a few hours, that water is going to be a couple feet deep, and those fertilizers are going to be right there where your active roots are drinking the water. So not below, not on top, but right there. Timing is crucial for fertigation. So it's all these little bits and pieces. When you start putting them together, my filter is failing, and my flushing valve is stuck open, and I'm losing 40 gallons a minute all the time right there. And I can't see that because I don't have a sensor before and after my filter. Those are the kind of things that build up a solution that you can use, across the board, hopefully. And I haven't even touched on row crops and pivots, which is another story. Only just talking about drip and what the stuff we see in the valley,
So interesting. A lot of follow-up questions, but I mean, I think I love the approach with a farmer to say, what is your biggest problem? Because I think that there's so many companies, startups be like, we're going to solve all your problems, right? Like, but I think what is your biggest need, and saying, hey, how we can help address that, I think is a super savvy approach, even if you get all these other benefits. It's almost how I think about regenerative agriculture, right? Is like, some people are really passionate about carbon sequestration, and other people are really passionate about nutrient density, and other people are really passionate about water retention and soil health, right? It's like, who cares? Whichever one you're most excited about, you're going to get all these other benefits, right? Like, yeah. So it doesn't really matter.
And you got to start by something at the end of the day. That's the point. Like, if you're having problem because you want to run off peak and you want to basically be able to turn off your pumps from home, then because your energy cost is high in your operation, then that's your first. If you're having problems with the fertilizer, or if you're having, you want to count how many gallons you're actually putting on each block to have accountability. But to have accountability over the irrigation system, the irrigation process starts on the well and the water source, and it ends up in the drip emitter by the tree. So there's so much things that happen in between, so many things that you can have a problem in some of them. If you have a brand new irrigation system, maybe distribution uniformity is not a big thing for you. But if your irrigation system is old, maybe you want to go place a few pressure transducers throughout the field so you can quickly identify when the pump's not doing the work perfectly. Your distribution uniformity takes a hit very, very quickly. So your priority is to incorporate pressure readings through the field. It depends on what your need is, and that's what our approach has been, to kind of like try to solve problems one at a time. Now, we've been building on this system for 20 years, man, so we can solve a lot of problems. I'm just not going to throw all of them at you. Like, hey, I want to try soil moisture sensors. Buy 4. That's usually I have 300 blocks. Yeah, but start with 4 probes. And once you learn how to use 4, then you go to 20 and maybe think of 300. But please use 4 first. Otherwise, you're going to get overwhelmed and you're going to hate some moisture probes.
No, it's taking a long-term strategy, right? With customers is crawl, walk, run, right? Let's get started baby steps. Guillermo, along these lines, like, if we zoom out, the irrigation automation space, there's a ton of players, right? There's a ton of startups. There's a lot of like software only companies. There's ones that are focused particularly on agronomy. There's ones that are focused particularly on energy. Talk to us about how you guys have thought about like partnerships and working with some of these other players, and how that fits into the WiseConn ecosystem.
That's a good question. I think there's a lot of players, and that usually doesn't help the farmer, man, because to make the decision of what to use, there's so much smoke that can be blown that you wouldn't really, I see a lot of people making bad decisions because there's too much information. And that also happens with the data for farmers. Too much data. So how do I use it? So at the end of the day, we believe that there's not going to be one player that does it all. There's going to be a few players, but I think there's also going to be consolidation of the actual companies that are honestly and genuinely adding value to the process, or in this case, irrigation. You got to understand that for the people in Silicon Valley and in San Francisco, ag is the sexiest example. I mean, Verizon tried to do it 10 years ago with the Verizon Ag or whatever, AgTech or whatever it was called. It's the sexiest example for IoT, is the sexiest example for software development. So, but you got to understand ag and farming so much to really understand how to add value, because farmers have been farming for a long time, man. So, like, farming has been around forever. So it's like, and yes, there is a tendency to kind of like repeat practices and not innovate as fast as you would think, but that is because they've tried it already and they've been burned before. So that's why the adoption rate is taking baby steps and making sure that every step is actually solid. So again, and back to the question, we believe that we made our platform open. We identified what we wanted to do 10 years ago, and that was we're going to control the ag irrigation system remotely, right? And that includes, as I said, the pump at the well, the flow meter, the booster, the filter station, the electrical part, the fertilizer injection, the valve, the pressure distribution, hydraulically speaking, control. And we've done a really good job at that, and that's where we're focusing. So, and we integrate and build partnerships with all these companies that have portions of it, right? And have other parts that we not necessarily have. WiseConn doesn't manufacture weather stations, man. We buy weather stations off the shelf just like everybody else. I mean, and so moisture probes. We use 3 or 4 different kinds. At the end of the day, we know what we're good at, and what we've been focusing our resources is on being the best irrigation automation company. And then through APIs and software, we've integrated with all sorts of companies that are building the AI, that are building the algorithms, that are building, recommendations, that are integrating. There's a few companies, and we'll have some announcements soon. So there's some exciting stuff coming from our side as well, because we believe that consolidation and partnerships of the agtech industry is going to allow to have one-stop shop. If you go look at the guys that are doing frost control, the guys that are doing the valve control, the guys that are doing the mate disruption, the guys that are doing the autonomy tractor, or these guys, if you look at us on the irrigation automation, all these guys are having a really hard time to make money just off of their only service, which is, I'll talk about us, irrigation automation, or our distributors. Our distributors usually, which is another important partnership for us, is your local service provider, the guy that's close by, that already installs the pipe, the glue, the pump, the filter, the WiseConn system. So we've made it into built it into as a part of the business that was already consolidated. With AgTech, I think there's going to be a consolidation at the AgTech level and the technology and the cloud and all that it's going to basically leave a few alternatives in the market that are adding value, that are integrating all these services. And then the field people and the service people are going to be there to clean your solar panels, put your pheromone cans, check on your wind machine, and that's one truck that drives up and does everything. And that guy's going to be making money because he's got time to do everything inside a ranch and provide the service for all your agtech solutions, right? And he's going to have a healthy business. But one truck driving in to check on the valve, one truck driving in to check on the weather station, another truck to check in on that's not going to work, man. That's, at the end of the day, these service companies need to be profitable, need to make money in the process, in the chain, and the grower needs to get quality service the manufacturer needs to provide quality product, and the intermediary here, that needs to be that local dealership. Look at it as a John Deere, or maybe even cars, Chevy and Ford. You got your local guy where you can take your truck for service. And if it's not in your town, it's in the town next to you, right? But it's close, and they're specialized, and they provide a good service for a competitive price. That's I believe that at the end of the day, once these products and services that we agree that add value and save costs or redestinate resources will make a good impact when there is a house of solutions that provide more than just one. So I think, and this is long term. I'm talking. This is where I see my vision of how this is, going to end up being a multi-pronged service provided by 3 or 4 bigger companies.
Yeah, definitely agree with you there. Would love to double click into kind of an example of a recent partnership you made with Swan Systems, looking at groundwater regulation, monitoring, reporting that, obviously with Sigma coming into Impact. Maybe just talk to us about the relationships with Swan Systems and kind of like what their product gets unlocked using WiseConn.
So yeah, so again, we go into the stepping out of our niche of what we're good at, stepping out of that automation space into water reporting, providing whatever the GSA needs to provide DWR, the Department of Water Resources, or whatever kind of frequency, or I'm going to call it reporting for basically compliance. That's something that I would have to put engineers to work on, that software, on that dashboard, to provide what the GSA is looking for. And that's what Swan does. So that's when it's very important. We sat down and decided, hey, let's bring a solution out so that will give growers, GSAs, and the authorities access to the data however they want to see it. And they got the capability of building that relatively quick. We provide the hardware, the service, the installation through our local distributor network. Right, and that works out. And Swan is, it's a great company. We believe they have a lot of software muscle development that we don't, and we're not investing in, because we kind of like have to invest in hardware, middleware, software. So we kind of like have to distribute our resources as effective as we can, and efficient. So that is where there's a win-win, and that's where we're looking at a win-win on the relationship, on that partnership, where we're both providing and adding value to the grower, not just making it more, but identify that value. So for example, we also have integration with Ag Monitor, which they're really good at, monitoring all the energy, and they got the whole PG&E power and all the solar assets connected into their software. So there's a very powerful, water source energy consumption when we work with them. Semios we've been working on closely, and they also are getting into the water management space, although they've been made disruption mainly, but they're interested in getting into this and have good quality people that are working on it. With FightTech we've collaborated. Swan, Probe Schedule in the Pacific Northwest. We got probably a dozen integrations. And again, going back to the previous question, we believe that openness with the data is owned by the grower. So we get an email from the grower asking for the API key to give it to so-and-so. We're even actually taking a step further, and you guys are going to see an announcement soon. Marketing they're going to call me on this, but we're launching a marketplace. And that marketplace is going to be on your WiseConn platform. And you're going to be able to log in, and you're going to see all these companies there, what they do, and how you can connect to them through WiseConn, because through the WiseConn marketplace. And then you'll find all these companies, Series on the imaging side. And then you got stuff like Simis, that it's owned by the state, or Sentinel, which is a free satellite that is available for all the growers for free in our platform. So although the marketplace is going to incorporate all these integrations, because we believe that we're good at one thing and we connect devices around what we do, but we can't do everything, and we don't believe we will be able to do everything. So we're just going to stick to that, and everything else we're going to bring it in from somebody that has that capability and that offers the value. And in this case, for example, with Swan, they offered that value, and it's working out. We're just starting, so we'll see how that operates, how that goes.
It's a strategy that makes a lot of sense, right? It's like, hey, we know what we do well. If there's one thing I think we've learned in business, It's you have to focus on what is your unique competitive advantage, and let's do that and do it really well and focus and not to get distracted. And I think just even in this economy, I think a lot of businesses have had to figure that out, of just de-scoping what they're doing, because you can't do everything. You can't boil the ocean, and you're actually going to probably have better profitability focusing on what you do best.
In the long term, about 10 years ago, we kind of like decided, you know what, we're going to focus. We actually opened California 9 years ago. So 10 years ago, we decided we're going to focus only on ag. And 3 or 4 years before, we had decided we're going to focus only on water. So at some point, back in the, 2010, we were discussing the possibility of monitoring, heads of cattle in Brazil, and it was millions of them. So once you get into like the technology, and that's what I was saying before, once you get into the technology and the kind of like the Silicon Valley space and the technology and the software and the IoT, and you get technical on the technology side, ag is one of the sexiest examples, but it's probably one of the hardest. Geographically expanded under the sun, with farmers that average 60-year-old decision makers. It's probably one of the hardest things, and we just decided that 10 years ago, and now we're all deep in. So that's why we believe that, especially on something like farming, that is an irrigation, that is a very difficult process to do it. It's not. We were discussing with Craig before a few days ago with Craig Hornung that it's an art backed by science. I told him I agree with you, but I believe that with technology and with all the tools, we are trying to make it more of a science than an art. So it's science backed by art, and not art backed by science. So I think with more data and with more information, we can put a more scientific note on irrigation. But that's the headline. But then to get that done, there's so many things that need to happen, man. So many things downstream or upstream. If you're an irrigator, like, am I getting the water from my district at the same time they told me that I was going to, have it available? There's so many things that can happen in the farm that very quickly you find out that the IoT solution needs to be built over time. And we've been working on it for 15 years.
Guillermo, you've been in market for, like you said, almost 10 years. Like, where are we at with adoption for kind of these kind of systems? Like, when we look at our farm, we have, 25 or so fields. We have these kind of dedicated WiseConn systems on 4 of the 25. So it's kind of slow, iterating year over year. Like, what's the addressable market look like in California, and how's adoption going?
There's like, the market is hard to dimension it in terms of addressability, because a lot of the acreage is already been installed. So, well, in your guys' case, if like on the tomatoes, on some of the crops that you're rotating, that's, you gotta set it up every year. That's why I was saying those practices are completely different than an almond or a pistachio that you installed it there to be 20 years, and hopefully not invest another dime on it after you finish your capex, on year zero. So some operational expenses, of course, but so that the decision for growers to incorporate the technology at a large scale, it's a long sales cycle. It's 3 years at least. So it's a combination of, I'm gonna split it in two to answer your question. One is new acreage, and the other is existing acreage. New acreage is what we've been doing forever, and that's how we've gotten to market through our irrigation companies. And when you're installing a new irrigation system or a new planting, and you already are paying for the plants, for the irrigation system, for everything that you need to install at the beginning, okay, you have the capital investment to invest in an automation system. I mean, a WiseConn system runs for $300 an acre. When you're doing an investment, when you're doing that, the initial investment, that's nothing. You didn't even think about it. I'm going to buy the remote control or not. The problem is when you're already operating and you're not spending money yearly on investing in the crop, then you need to somehow put it into your cash flow, because you're not considering into an operational cost. So for us right now, if we go look, and this is one of also the things that keeps me, is top of mind for me right now, for the first question. It's, we estimate we have about 9% coverage on our corporate accounts that use WiseConn, like they're using it every year on the ranches. So we're talking about a 10% of the total acreage that this 70 accounts hold. And right now they are limited on how much they can invest on it, because it's how much capital investment they can actually, and when the market is down like now that they're losing money per acre, anything they can tear off the budget, they will. And that's why there's also a lot of the service companies on agtech that had contracts with these growers had their contracts canceled, because now we're taking care of the cash flow. So there is a complexity on the old acreage on how you can actually incorporate the technology and get into that other 90%. I like to say, when I moved here 10 years ago, probably 3% of the state was automated. Now I'm going to say maybe 10%, but that is because when there was a lot of investment and planting on new irrigation systems, 70-80% of the new projects go with automation. Like, I don't, there's not a lot of people that's thinking not to do automation on new projects if you've already tried it, right? But your new acreage is only a little piece of the total addressable market that is all the existing acreage. Now, the existing acreage, the way we've worked is we do a trial, like with you guys. We start 3-4 ranches, and then second year we do 10-15 to see if we can make it at scale, because the problem comes when you're controlling 100 valves, 1,000 valves. That's not a problem. We're controlling 55,000 valves, so we need to be able to do it. That's today. So we need to be able to do it at scale and for everybody to work, not for just 65 growers in Modesto. So the capability of the investment of the growers later on is when there's incentive money. Sweep has helped a lot on that 3 to 10% technology incorporation. Sweep helped a lot, and the last couple of years hasn't been available either. So you see an impact on capital investment on old systems. But usually when these growers, I'm telling you, these 50 accounts that add up like 1 million acres in California, those guys already have 10% of it and want to get to 100%. They're just trying to build their budgets and usually do that, the cycle I was explaining. You start with 3 or 4, then you go to 10 or 15, and then on year 3, year 4, they tell you, okay, I want to do 7,000 acres. How do we do this? Let's build a 5-year investment plan. I'll present it to the board, and we'll invest in the technology because we've already tested it on 15 ranches. That's kind of like how the process goes. But if there's no capital available, incentives, that's where sometimes the capital, and with the rates that we used to have, at least, that's when the capital investment gets reduced, and usually the old acreage doesn't get the love that the new acreage is getting.
Well, I have just been eating this up. It's always great to catch up with you, Guillermo, and learn more about how you guys are thinking about the industry and really being at the forefront of innovation. So it's exciting to hear it all. I appreciate you coming on again. As we finish up, how can listeners get in touch and connect with you and WiseConn?
Yeah, WiseConn, it's WiseConn.com, and people that want to get in touch with me, my email is g@wiseconn.com.
So Tim, what do you think?
Love chatting through kind of like how he's thinking about partnerships and kind of bringing additional value to their customers. We just talked through the example on our farm where we got some WiseConn systems a couple of years ago, and that sale wasn't directly with WiseConn. It was through an irrigation dealer where we did this automation system. And so by being able to leverage these channel partners, they can get penetration on farm without having like a door-to-door salesman on every farm, just looking at the network to help amplify. So I thought that was really interesting.
The channel distribution is just like so wild. There's so many different players. It's pretty interesting to see it all come together. And I think WiseConn is doing it in a really strategic way. Hope you guys enjoyed that conversation with Guillermo. If you want to hear more about what Tim and I are thinking about each week, the stuff we're reading, the stuff we're listening to, ideas we have, you got to join the Modern Acre Co-op. We're doing exclusive audio content for the co-op every week. So if you want more from Tim and I, check the link in the show notes, sign up for the Modern Acre Co-op. Thanks, guys.